Today I'm going to be sharing my top 3 favorite cruelty-free and vegan foundations. Let's go ahead and just get started. So the first one I'm going to share is the foundation that I am wearing today, and I know I've mentioned it in other videos because I've worn it in other videos. This is the Haus by Lady Gaga foundation. Now this foundation has quite the name, so I'm going to refer to my notes to make sure I get it right. This is the Triclone Skin Tech Medium Coverage Foundation with fermented arnica. Yes, that is a mouthful. But this is a great foundation because it does work for being on video, being on camera for photography, but it also works as everyday makeup. So it does have that true medium coverage that it mentions right there in the title. But I do find if I use about 1 pump, I can get a nice closer to skin-like finish, and then if I use about 1.5 pumps with like a stippling brush or a beauty blender, I am able to build up a little more coverage, like if I want more coverage for being on video rather than my everyday life where I definitely want it to look closer to skin-like. I will say I have a second foundation that is coming up that I feel is more skin-like than this one. I don't believe this is the most skin-like foundation I've ever had, but I do think it performs really well and it lasts all day. It holds up really nicely and I like how it applies. It works for my dry skin, but it also is suitable for oily skin types, combo skin types. It works on mature skin. It's a great option for pretty much any skin type. And it's great that it works for every skin type because this shade range is 51 colors, which is quite a shade range. And they do have very light to dark colors, so there should be a shade for everybody, which is great because there are all of those different skin tones and textures and things like that that we all need different things out of foundation. So this one retails for $45, and I picked this one up at Sephora. You can also get it from Haus from the website, and I have the shade 175 Light Neutral. Now this shade for me is actually, I would call this close to my summer shade. So when it's in the winter and I don't have quite as much of a tan, this shade is actually a little bit dark for me. But one of the shades in the 51 shades is actually a white shade. And so you can use that white shade to lighten the foundation so that you can make it match your skin tone any time of the year. Now, of course, you could just buy a second foundation in a lighter shade and go a shade down or a couple shades down, and you can mix them, or you could just use that lighter shade in the winter time. But the advantage of having this white shade is that you can actually mix it to other foundations, and it's really customizable. So you could just add a couple drops or a bigger pump to really change the shade of the foundation for throughout the year when you need it. So of course you can do whatever works for you. Maybe you don't really change your shade throughout the year, or it's not a noticeable difference. So it's great to have that white option to add to your makeup collection if you are someone who has a lot of foundations. Now, if you're someone who likes to just have a couple of foundations that are your go-tos, then feel free to stick with just the one shade that will work for you. So that is my first one, but I'm not sharing these necessarily in order. These are just kind of my top 3 picks that I reach for kind of every day. And I also keep these in my professional makeup kit. So the second one I want to share is another one I know I've mentioned on my channel before and I've worn in videos before. And this is my kind of first like holy grail real love foundation way before the Haus even came along. This is the Atelier Ultra Foundation. And I bought it originally years and years ago off of like QVC, and they had a special bundle with like a setting spray and a brush, and I have not seen it back on there ever again. So this is a pretty expensive foundation. This retails for $58. And don't worry, I do have a drugstore version coming up for you for the cruelty-free and vegan foundations. But this one, I still absolutely think it's worth every penny. It looks so beautiful. This one I do feel is very skin-like, especially even for someone like me who has dry skin and it's harder to achieve that. I think that this is so good as like a natural everyday foundation, but it also works so beautifully for photography. This is a very commonly used foundation by pro artists for brides. It gives a very similar, it's a very comparable finish to airbrush makeup. And so it's a silicone based foundation and it just looks so beautiful. I have the shade 2 Ivory, and I have tried the next shade, or tried a shade 3, which is Wheat, I believe, and I was able to wear that one and I was able to wear this one, and it doesn't really matter if it's the summer or the winter. There's something about it that just really blends beautifully with my skin and the undertones, that I was able to kind of use it and it didn't look too light or too dark. And so it's one of those that if you're someone who kind of only likes to have one foundation and it can kind of be a chameleon and go with you when your skin gets a little darker or a little lighter due to being in the sun and things like that, this is such a great choice. This is another one I would still, you can wear this one without powder. I feel like the Haus Labs, like, I don't think you can wear that one without powder for very long. This one, it lasts nicely without powder, but it lasts better with powder. And if you're using it for being on camera in photos or in video, then it definitely does need powder to help set it. But if you're just wearing it in an everyday situation, you actually can get away without the powder. And this one has a built-in primer, so you do not need to use a primer with this. If you want to, you can, but you really don't need to. And so I kind of say that you can justify that $58 price because you can eliminate another product in that you can eliminate your primer. So this is a wonderful foundation. This is probably one of my favorite foundations. Again, it works for dry skin, mature skin, great for mature skin. It works for oily skin, combo skin, and anyone can really use it. I think that you can't go wrong with this foundation. Now, as I said, I picked it up at QVC years ago, like the first time, and they used to have it at a store here near Olympia where I live, and they don't carry it anymore. So most recently I have been getting it from camerareadycosmetics.com. Of course, no affiliation, no sponsorship, but I just wanted to let you know where you can pick it up at a reputable place. I do believe it's a Canadian company, so you can order it directly from the company, but it does come from Canada, so just keep in mind you may have some international shipping and things like that. So that's why I have been picking it up at Camera Ready Cosmetics, because they are in Texas and it is a United States company, so I don't have to worry about international shipping. And I think it enabled me to keep the cost down a little bit. But anyway, this is a great foundation, and they have 20 shades in this foundation, so it does have a great shade range. But they also have, Face Atelier has multiple products that are actually made especially for pro makeup artists, but you can, whoever you are, you can absolutely use these products and change the kind of undertones of your foundation. So they have heat, they have white, they have I think they have a very dark, deep one that you can use. They have several different options for different foundation shade adjusters. And so they definitely have a white like Haus Labs does to make any shade lighter, but they also have a yellow and an orange to help kind of warm up, or you integrate more yellow or golden tones into the foundation if you need it. If you are someone who has trouble finding a shade match, you can also find at Camera Ready Cosmetics, they sell individual small samples for like 1 or 2 uses. So you can actually buy a little bottle tester and try the shade. And you can also get, I believe you can get the little shade adjusters as well. So if you're someone who has very deep skin and you always, need to make sure it warms it up so it doesn't look ashy, check out those options as well. There are so many, and anyone can get and achieve the correct kind of shade for themselves if you want to put a little work into it. I won't say that it's easy. All right, the third and final foundation I am sharing is our drugstore version for the day. And I would say this is very comparable to the Haus Labs foundation. This is the LA Girl Pro Matte HD High Definition Longwear Matte Foundation. Now, you might be surprised that someone like myself with dry skin would choose a matte foundation. And they do have LA Girl has a foundation that is not a matte. I think it's a glow foundation. And that one was too kind of oily or greasy and just didn't work. And yet this matte one, even for my dry skin, looks absolutely beautiful and has a very nice medium to full buildable coverage. And it has really similar consistencies to the Haus Lab foundation. And this one retails for about $8 to $10 depending on where you can pick it up. You can pick it up at a lot of drugstores. I got mine at Ulta. You can find it, lots of drugstores will carry it. So you can also get it from the LA Girl website. They do have 24 shades in this shade range, so a decent amount of shades to choose from. I use the color beige, and it is pretty comparable again to my Haus Labs, maybe a tiny bit lighter than the 175. Yeah, maybe a tiny bit lighter than the 175, but very similar to that. So again, kind of a tan summer shade for myself. I could go the next shade down if I was getting it in the winter, perhaps. So I believe all of these are 1 ounce bottles. Yes, so that's pretty standard for foundation. They come in 1 ounce bottles. So we're comparing them all for ounce when we're talking price here too. These are all these are all in glass bottles, like my favorite. So all of these come in glass bottles with pumps. Like, I can't recommend any of these more. I think they are so good. I love glass bottles and pumps. I think they are the best way and such a nice, easy way to dispense and properly get the right amount. And then you can also, much less messy. You can recycle the bottles when they're done. So I do love that about all of these foundations. I will say for this LA Girl Pro Matte, if you have dry skin, it may not look, again, like the Face Atelier is such a skin-like looking foundation. I would say that the Pro Matte is still skin-like, but a little bit less with the matte foundation. I have actually used the e.l.f. Glow Primer Sunscreen and mixed a little bit in with this foundation to kind of alleviate a little bit of the matteness for my dry skin, and it looked so good. So I have mentioned before here on my channel, Unfiltered Makeup, that I really like that e.l.f. Sunbeam Glow Primer sunscreen, and it works great under foundation. It works well under any of these foundations. I've tried it with all of them, and I even tried mixing it in with this one, and it just helps bring up some of the matteness if it is looking a little too dry for dry skin. But I do think this works probably very well for oily skin. I know it works for combo skin, and it's a great option. So any of these three, I think you can't go wrong. The LA Girl line also has some color correctors. So they do have a white. These are called their Pro Color Foundation Mixing Pigment. And I haven't even opened these that I have to show you today, but this is the white, and so you could actually use your white mixing pigment from LA Girl if you want to try to make your Haus labs a little bit lighter, because now you're going into winter and fall and winter and you need a lighter shade, but you don't want to spend the $45 on the white Haus labs. You could actually mix this LA Girl white mixing pigment in and get a little bit lighter color. So, and you could mix it in with the Face Atelier as well. All of these you want to experiment a little bit, but this works really well and doesn't change the consistency of your foundation. So especially if you're just using like a little bit, a couple drops to just lighten it up, I would put it on a palette or even on the back of your hand and mix it up and then go in and apply with a brush. This one is also their yellow pigment. So if you're someone who feels like you need to kind of warm up or add some yellow to the foundations because they're looking too neutral, this is a great option to kind of add that more golden tone into the foundation and keep it from looking like it's not your real skin. The other color that I don't have, they actually have two other colors, I believe, but the one color that I would highly recommend for people to check out that I don't have is the blue shade. And that actually is great for mixing in when you have foundations that are too warm. So if you're someone who puts on foundations and they often look very orange on your skin, check out the blue pigment and use that in just a little bit. If you mix too much in, I've seen people, I think it kind of went viral in the past year or so, the blue mixing pigment. That's why I don't have it. It kept being sold out all over. So I've seen it on videos where people just keep mixing and just keep mixing to try to make their foundation cooler, and it will turn gray at some point. You will lose that balance of color. So you just want to mix a little bit in to kind of turn down some of the saturation to make it look a little less, so to bring some more blues into it to turn it to a cooler tone to match you. So it's a great option if you feel like even neutral or cool foundations are looking really orange on you. Just add a little bit again on a palette or on the back of your hand and mix it in and try to shade match. Especially you can shade match kind of from your chin to your neck. That's where you want to test and see if you can get the color to match you a little bit better. So if you feel like it's very common for foundation to lean orange on fair people, so if and some do oxidize to a fair orange shade. So that blue is a great option to have in your toolkit if you feel like no matter what foundation you have, it is just kind of too warm for you. So mix that in there and you will see a big difference. Now, if it's just that the shade is too dark for you and it's not leaning orange on you, then you just want to opt for the white. You don't need to change the color. These all have a fairly neutral undertone. I think probably the ivory has the Face Atelier has the most warm undertone of the three here, but they are pretty neutral leaning, and then you can always warm them up with like bronzer or even a darker foundation you could use and mix a little bit and use that as like a liquid bronzer where you would normally apply your powder bronzers. So like where you kind of contour like on your cheekbones, on your forehead, maybe around the jawline. So you can also use that trick to use those darker foundations mixed in with your lighter foundations to warm up some of the contours of your face as well. So that's another trick to try. So those are my top 3 favorites. Before we go, I just thought I would show you a quick demonstration. I think it's always fun to see how the Haus Labs performs. I know I have the Face Atelier on in the Pacifica haul video, so you can definitely go check that one out. I know I have it in some other videos, but that's the one I can think of. I'll link that, but that's the one I can think of off the top of my head. But let's just take a look before we go and compare how they actually like swatch and run. I love to see the consistency. Maybe this is just me. Let me know in the comments if you like to see the consistency of foundation too. So this is the Haus Labs, and I'll just put it here on the palette. And so you can see it's got a nice thick but still runny consistency, so it means that it spreads really beautifully on the skin, on your brush. The face Atelier I will do next. And I will squirt that. So this one has a thinner consistency, I would say, than the Haus Labs. So you could see, this is where I'm saying I think that you get more of a skin-like finish with the Face Atelier because it does have a more liquid consistency. It, of course, spreads really nicely, and that's how you get that airbrushed finish with that really nice slick spread, but not too watery. You can see if I kind of turn it on the sides, it's not too watery, but it does run. And then the last one, I think this is gonna slide the least, I'm pretty sure. So this is the LA Girl Pro Matte Foundation, and this one I think has a more, definitely a more moussey consistency. And so you can see it does spread some, but it's pretty thick consistency up there, and stays pretty well. And so that one is the one I was saying, if you do have dry skin, I still think it will work for you. If you find that it is too dry, you can mix in like a drop of a face oil, or like I said, you can drop in some moisturizer. You can drop in some of that sunscreen primer, the e.l.f. Wow Glow. So you can see what it looks like when it spreads out. And, you know, I have to just comment on the fact that you can see quite the difference in all of the shades. And, I can still wear and work with all of these colors on my one skin tone. So, it can be forgiving. This one I said here in the middle, the Face Atelier is definitely the most forgiving shade. Something in it really allows it to work with your skin. So it's got some bubbles in it, but there are the three of them: Haus Labs, Face Atelier, and LA Girl. So these are my top 3 favorite cruelty-free and vegan foundations. Let me know if you try any of these out and what you think. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.